All right, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, at this point in time, I think it's pretty safe to say that Israel Adesanya, in my opinion, at the very least, is pretty much an industry plant, okay? Because we just found out, it was confirmed by Israel Adesanya on Theo Von's podcast, that he was offered the title fight against Dricus Du Plessis at UFC 300.
What meant to happen? They summoned me. I'm sure this is out there now. Eugene said some stuff, but they summoned me. They summoned me for 300, and I was like, "Yep, let's roll." But their side didn't want it, so I was like, "Well, fuck it. I'm just gonna keep."
Who, DDP side?
Yeah, they didn't want it.
Wow.
But
Which would be a pretty quick turnaround for Dricus Du Plessis after he had a pretty brutal war with Sean Strickland, okay? If you look at his face after that fight, he looked like he had been hit by a truck or something, okay? Like he had taken a pretty good amount of damage, not to mention all of the checked leg kicks that caused Dricus Du Plessis to actually say in an interview just following that fight with Sean Strickland that he couldn't even walk to the bathroom the next morning. He had to crawl. Okay, yet the UFC is trying to, in my opinion, put their fingers on the scale of some of these fights and have Israel Adesanya step in on more than ideal circumstances for him and less than ideal circumstances for Dricus Du Plessis in order to give Israel Adesanya the best chance at a victory. And at this point in time, I don't understand it, dude. I just don't, okay? When a new champion comes, there is life brought into the division, okay? It just is, point blank period. With Israel Adesanya at the head of the middleweight division, it was stale for a very long time until Alex Pereira, I guess, came and, you know, kind of ran through the guys that that were put in front of him in order to get a title shot against Israel Adesanya. But even then we see Israel Adesanya get an immediate mulligan after losing to Alex Pereira in their first bout. Now, in that one, it's understandable, okay? It's understandable. And he was a long reigning champion. He hadn't lost at middleweight for a long time. His only loss in the recent times was against Jan Blachowicz, right? So fine, give him an immediate rematch. He goes out there, he gets his belt again. Now at that point, he is a one-time defending champion against Sean Strickland, which, by the way, in that fight, he tried to get Dricus Du Plessis on short notice as well. And thank God Dricus Du Plessis has good career management skills, because he said no to that short notice opportunity, and instead we got Sean Strickland handpicked by Israel Adesanya, who went in there and performed the way that short notice Sean Strickland likes to perform. Do you know what I mean? And beat the shit out of Israel Adesanya essentially for 5 rounds and won the title off of him. Now at this point, Israel Adesanya has no title defenses in his current reign, is 4-3 in his last 7, and for whatever reason, the UFC is desperate to give him another title shot. We saw this post UFC 293 when he lost to Sean Strickland that Dana White was pretty much advocating for an immediate rematch.
See, dominant champions get an immediate rematch, right? But Israel just had one of those with Pereira fights. So do you kind of, I know this is a Tuesday question, but do you sort of think, well, let's just book it again because Israel looks so off? Or do you just sort of see how the division plays out and leave Israel on the side for a moment?
No, I think you do the rematch, absolutely. I mean, the rematch is interesting. That could be the thing, too. You know, when you think about you're going into the Pereira fight, such a big fight, you know, and you've been in there with this guy so many times, and then you overlook Strickland, and you come in and you know, I don't know.
For Israel Adesanya received the smallest amount of pushback from some of the reporters at the press conference post UFC 293, and he kind of got irritated with the question. But of course, Oscar Willis was the first one to ask him about it, and Dana White says, yes, I think you do the rematch. For those of you that don't remember, I'll play the clip right now. To me, I just don't understand it, dude. We see this with certain guys that, in my opinion, aren't the stars that the UFC thinks that they are, but they want them to be the stars that they think they are, okay? It's weird. I use this term quite frequently on this channel, manufactured stars. We see this with the likes of Ian Gary, the likes of Sean O'Malley, and Israel Adesanya to a certain extent. Now, I'm not going to deny that at a certain point in time, Israel Adesanya was, in fact, one of their larger pay-per-view stars, but I don't think he has had a single pay-per-view that has gotten to 1 million pay-per-view buys. I think Israel Adesanya's largest pay-per-view, at the very least disclosed one, okay, because they stopped disclosing the pay-per-view numbers, which is a little irritating. Makes it harder to gauge who is truly a star, but his largest pay-per-view numbers were against Jan Blachowicz, and it was 800,000, and that was the peak of his career, and then you see it decline after that because his performances got kind of more and more boring after that, okay? Now, if he would have won against Jan Blachowicz, I'm sure that the next pay-per-view would have been a lot bigger and what have you. But you just got a new champion in Dricus Du Plessis, who had a homecoming quite like I've never seen before. Israel Adesanya didn't have a homecoming like that. Israel Adesanya instead went to New Zealand and drove around in a fucking McLaren. Do you know what I mean? When Dricus Du Plessis showed up at the airport in South Africa after winning the title against Sean Strickland, the crowd that was there was fucking bananas, and we have never seen anything like it, okay? I didn't mean that in that way, but either way, dude, unbelievable, okay? We have not seen that in a long, long time. And it seems as though the UFC is desperate to get Israel Adesanya his belt back, and I just don't understand it. They should take advantage of their new champion and allow him to heal, allow him to have a proper training camp. And if they want to do the Israel Adesanya fight, even though Israel Adesanya might be the least deserving title challenger at this point in time, aside from Khamzat Chimaev, then fine, dude, do it. But allow your champion to heal, allow your champion to have a proper training camp. And to me, dude, this is almost a conflict of interest, because I don't, you know, I'm going to be honest with you and myself. When this happened with Aljamain Sterling, I wasn't all that upset about it. And it's probably because I don't like Aljamain Sterling a whole lot. But now I want to be consistent, okay? And I'm gonna defend Aljamain Sterling a little bit, even though he is a very whiny and complainy motherfucker. Do you know what I mean? Which is kind of why I don't like him. He's constantly complaining about something. But regardless, dude, he had almost the exact same circumstances happen to him. We saw him lose his title. Pardon me. Do you know what I mean? And his war with Henry Cejudo was not near as damaging as Dricus du Plessis' fight against Sean Strickland. He was battered and beaten, and it seems as though that's the only time Israel Adesanya wants to fight him, if we're being honest, dude. Israel Adesanya, the first time they tried to schedule this fight, Dricus du Plessis had just fought Robert Whittaker. They wanted him to turn around on 2 months' notice. So you want to heal from your injuries and then have to turn around into camp immediately and still, at that point in time, have a shortened camp? Not ideal for a championship opportunity. And then you see in the comment sections, the first time and this time, people saying Dricus du Plessis running from Israel Adesanya. Absolute fucking total horseshit. Honestly, dude, I'm glad that Dricus du Plessis said no to this UFC 300 opportunity. I am glad. I don't care. I'm sure I want to see the fight. Sure, it's a big fight. But I don't want Dricus du Plessis to be pressured into taking a title fight on less than ideal circumstances. And I'm going to be honest, dude. I would wonder if the UFC tried to make another fight with Israel Adesanya for an interim, and it just didn't pan out. Maybe the Khamzat Chimaev rumors were true, and they were going to do an interim title fight just a few months after Dricus du Plessis won his title. We saw this when Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya. The UFC, for whatever fucking reason, it's like they're afraid of change at this point in time. They don't want to take advantage of organically grown stars that actually resonate with a large chunk of the fan base. Okay, Sean Strickland's post-fight interview at UFC 293 is comparable to Israel Adesanya's biggest interview post-fight that we've seen in terms of views. Do you know what I mean? He is an organic star that just came from out of nowhere, took an opportunity on short notice, got the job done, and then kind of blew up in his stardom. But the UFC didn't really want to give him a big push. The UFC didn't really get behind it. They wouldn't acknowledge his star power. Dana White was asked about it multiple times at press conferences. He just didn't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's like, nah, we want Izzy back. And it's just, I don't fucking understand it, dude. At this point in time, I don't understand it. 4-3 in his last 7. Boring performances, aside from the Alex Pereira one, over the last 4 years. Do you know what I mean? We haven't seen aside from the Pereira finish, dude, go back. When was the last time we saw a good fight or a good finish from Israel Adesanya? What, you want to talk about Kelvin Gastelum? You want to talk about the Robert Whittaker one? We're talking 2019 type shit. Do you know what I mean? Paulo Costa, fine. There's one. Do you know what I mean? The rest of them were pretty boring after that. I just don't get it, dude. To me, Israel Adesanya is not the superstar that the UFC makes him out to be. Okay? I think that he has a good following on social media, obviously has a massive following on social media, but in terms of pay-per-view buys, he's not it. And when he was champion for that long of a time, the division got stale. And we kind of just saw this with Alexander Volkanovski, whereas if Volk would have beat Ilia Topuria, who the fuck would he have fought? Do you know what I mean? Who would he have fought, dude? The division at a certain point in time gets stale. And look, I'm not saying that I'm happy that Volk got flatline KO'd, but in a way I am. Okay, because we have a new champion now. We have a ton of new fresh matchups, which is exactly what we would have had with Dricus du Plessis. But instead, the UFC's trying to force Israel Adesanya down our fucking throats, the same way Israel Adesanya forces chewed up food down his dog's throat, okay? And I just can't fucking stand it. Now, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think Israel Adesanya, at this point in time, it is fair to call him an industry plant, honestly, dude? Because who fucking likes him, dude? Honestly, who likes him? I fucking don't. I'm sick of him. I want him to go away. He's in his late 30s. Retire, dude. Do you know what I mean? The UFC wants him to be a 3-time middleweight champion. And the Dricus fight, fine, dude. Is it a big fight? Sure. I guess so, dude. Honestly, For me, I would rather see the Sean Strickland rematch, but it is what it is, dude. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you at the next video. Bye-bye.